book smart. I don't even know where to start, honestly. Maybe with the fact that I'm a married woman, and I work at a quiet little library in a town where everyone thinks they know you. My name's not important, let's just say I go by Lila. I never thought I'd be the kind of person to have a secret like this, the kind that makes your hands shake when you think about it too hard, but here I am, spilling my guts to a bunch of strangers reading this because I can't keep it bottled up anymore. It started 3 months ago. I was restocking the romance section, ironic, right, when I noticed a man I'd never seen before. He was leaning against the tall oak bookshelf, flipping through a beat-up copy of Wuthering Heights, but his eyes kept flicking up to me. Dark hair, broad shoulders, a leather jacket that looked like it had stories of its own. When our eyes met, he didn't look away. He just smiled, a slow, almost lazy smile that made my heart skip a beat. I remember thinking, he looks like he could be a character in one of these novels, the kind who sweeps a woman off her feet and into something dangerous. The next day, there was a note tucked into the copy of Pride and Prejudice I always keep on my desk. Sloppy handwriting, but the words. Your hair catches the light like spun gold when you stand by the window. I wonder if it feels as soft as it looks. No name, just a little drawing of a book with a heart beside it. I should have thrown it away. I should have told my husband, Mark. But instead, I tucked it into my purse, my face burning. That was the first encounter. The second was 2 days later. I was alone in the rare books room, reaching up to dust the top shelf, when I felt someone behind me. His cologne, spicy, woody, hit me before he even spoke. Need a hand, he said, his voice low, almost a murmur. I turned around so fast I nearly dropped the duster. He was closer than I expected, close enough that I could see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes. I stammered something about being fine, but he just reached past me, his arm brushing against my shoulder, to grab a book that wasn't even out of place. You know, he said, flipping through it, I've been coming here every day since I saw you. Hoping you'd notice me. My heart was racing, you know. Like I was doing something wrong just standing there talking to him. But I didn't move. I just said, you should leave. I'm married. But my voice didn't sound sure. It sounded breathy. Weak. The third encounter was the rainstorm. I'd stayed late to catalog some new arrivals, and when I stepped outside, the sky had opened up. I was standing under the awning, hugging my coat around me, when his car pulled up. The window rolled down, and there he was, that same smile. Let me give you a ride, he said. It's pouring. I should have said no. I mean, Mark was out of town for a work trip, but still, this was a stranger. But the rain was cold, and my shoes were already soaked, and before I knew it, I was sliding into the passenger seat, my legs dripping water onto his car mats. He didn't take me straight home. He drove to a lookout point over the river, the windshield wipers swishing back and forth, the rain drumming on the roof. I'm Daniel, he said, turning to face me. His hand reached out, hesitated, then brushed a wet strand of hair away from my face. I should have flinched. I should have told him to take me home right then. But I didn't. I just sat there, frozen, as his thumb grazed my cheekbone, and I thought about how long it had been since Mark had touched me like that, like I was something worth noticing, worth wanting. You're so beautiful, he said, and then he leaned in, and his lips were on mine, soft at first, then harder, more insistent, like he'd been waiting to do that since the first day he saw me. And I kissed him back. I let him kiss me until my lips were swollen, until I was clutching the front of his jacket, until the heat between us was so thick I could hardly breathe. And then, oh, God, his hand slid down to my waist, pulling me closer, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years, desired. Ravished, almost. But then the car horn blared from a passing truck, and I jumped back, gasping, like I'd been burned. Take me home, I whispered. And he did. After that, I tried to stay away. I avoided the romance section, stayed in my office during my breaks, even considered taking a different route to work. But Daniel kept leaving notes, in my favorite books, on my desk, even tucked under the windshield wiper of my car. "I can't stop thinking about your lips," one said. "Meet me in the stacks tonight," another read. I ignored them, but every time I saw him in the library, my heart would pound. He'd just smile, that slow smile, like he knew I was fighting something inside me, something I didn't even understand. The fourth encounter happened a week later, on a quiet Tuesday afternoon. I was shelving returns in the history section, which is always deserted, when I felt a presence behind me. Before I could turn, a hand clamped over my mouth, gently, but firmly, and a voice breathed in my ear, "Shoo. It's just me. Daniel." My entire body went rigid, then molten. His chest was pressed to my back, his thumb rubbing slow circles on my jaw where his hand still covered my mouth. "I've been watching you avoid me," he said, his voice low, rough. "Do you know how hard it is to stay away when all I want is to touch you again?" I should have pulled away. I should have screamed. But instead, I leaned back into him, just a little, just enough to feel the solidness of his chest, the warmth of his breath on my neck. His free hand slid down to my hip, pulling me closer, and I bit my lip to stifle a moan as he pressed into me. "Tell me to stop," he murmured, his lips brushing the shell of my ear. "Tell me right now, and I'll disappear." But I couldn't speak. I couldn't even think. All I could feel was the thud of my heart, the heat of his hand through my skirt, the ache low in my belly that had been building since the rainstorm. He turned me around then, pressing me against the bookshelf, his eyes blazing. "You want this," he said, not a question. And before I could lie, before I could pretend, his mouth was on mine again, hungrier this time, his tongue sweeping in like he owned me. My hands betrayed me, tangling in his hair, pulling him closer, as his hands slid up my thigh, pushing the fabric of my skirt higher. I gasped into the kiss when his thumb grazed the edge of my stockings, the lace of my garter belt. "Daniel," I breathed, but it was a plea, not a protest. Then, we heard footsteps. Mrs. Higgins, the elderly volunteer, humming to herself as she approached the section. Daniel froze, his forehead resting against mine, our breath mingling. I pushed at his chest, panic rising, and he stepped back just as Mrs. Higgins rounded the corner. "Oh, Lila," she said, smiling. "I was wondering where you'd gotten to." I forced a smile, praying she couldn't see the flush on my cheeks, the way my hair was disheveled, the telltale crease in Daniel's jacket where I'd been clutching it. "Just shelving," I said, my voice shaky. Mrs. Higgins didn't notice, she never does. She prattled on about the new knitting club as Daniel silently slipped away, leaving me trembling against the bookshelf, his touch still burning on my skin. The fifth encounter was the following Saturday. Mark was at a golf tournament, and I'd gone into the library to catch up on inventory. I was alone, at least, I thought I was, until I heard the creak of the front door. My heart skipped a beat when I saw Daniel walking toward me, a single red rose in his hand. "For you," he said, pressing it into my hand, his fingers lingering on mine. "I wanted to see you without the shadows, without the fear of being caught." I should have refused the rose. I should have told him to leave. But instead, I brought it to my nose, inhaling the sweet, heady scent, and let him lead me to the cozy reading nook in the back, where the armchairs were old and overstuffed. He sat down, pulling me onto his lap, and I didn't resist. His hands were gentle this time, tracing the outline of my collarbone, the curve of my spine, as if he were memorizing me. "You're so tense," he murmured, his lips trailing along my neck. "Let me make you feel good, Lila. Just for a little while." I closed my eyes as his fingers worked the buttons of my blouse, one by one, exposing the lace of my bra. His thumb brushed over my nipple through the fabric, and I arched into his touch, a soft sigh escaping me. This was more intimate than the kiss in the car, more deliberate. He wasn't rushing, he was savoring, like I was a meal he'd been starving for. When his mouth closed over my breast through the lace, I bit my lip to keep from crying out, my fingers digging into his shoulders. "That's it," he whispered, looking up at me, his eyes dark with desire. "Let go for me." I nearly did. Right there in the reading nook, with the afternoon sun streaming through the windows, I nearly let him take me apart piece by piece. But then the phone rang, the library phone, shrill and insistent. I jumped, scrambling to button my blouse, my hands shaking. It was Mark, checking in, asking if I wanted him to pick up dinner. I talked to him like nothing was happening, like there wasn't a man sitting next to me who just had his mouth on my breast, like my world wasn't spinning off its axis. When I hung up, Daniel was gone, the rose lying on the armchair, its petals slightly crushed. The sixth encounter was the night I thought I'd finally gained control. I'd resolved to ignore him, to focus on my marriage, on the life I'd built. But Daniel wasn't the kind to be ignored. He started showing up at my favorite coffee shop in the mornings, sitting at the table closest to mine, watching me over the rim of his mug. He'd leave notes in my car again, but now they were more explicit. I dream about the way you taste, one said. I want to hear you moan my name when there's no one to stop us, another read. One evening, as I was unlocking my front door, I felt someone behind me. Before I could turn, a hand pressed a note into my palm, and then he was gone. I fumbled inside, turning on the light, and unfolded the paper. Meet me at the old mill tonight. 10 p.m. I need to show you something. My heart raced. The old mill was deserted, a relic on the edge of town. No one went there after dark. I shouldn't have gone. I know that now. But I did. I told Mark I was going for a walk, pulled on a coat, and headed out into the chilly night. Daniel was waiting for me, leaning against the stone wall, a flashlight in his hand. I wanted to show you the stars, he said, leading me to the mill's overlook. Out here, there's no light pollution. They're breathtaking. But he wasn't looking at the stars. He was looking at me. He took my hand, guiding it to his chest, where I could feel his heart pounding, just as fast as mine. I can't sleep, he said. I can't eat. All I can think about is you, Lila. The way you taste, the way you feel in my arms. I need you. His words undid me. All the resolve, all the guilt, melted away as he kissed me again, deeper, more desperate, his hands sliding under my coat, pulling me close. We stumbled against the mill wall, the cold stone at my back, his body warm and solid in front of me. His hands were everywhere, undoing the belt of my coat, sliding under my sweater, teasing the waistband of my pants. I was gasping, arching into him, beyond caring about the cold, the darkness, the danger. Daniel, I breathed, please. I don't know what I was pleading for. Forgiveness? More? Less? But he knew. He always knew. His hands slid into my pants, and I bit his shoulder to muffle the cry that escaped me, my legs trembling as he touched me, really touched me, for the first time. It was too much, too fast, too good. I came apart in his arms, my body shuddering, my face buried in his neck, as he whispered, "That's it, beautiful. Let me have it." Afterward, we stood there, breathless, my coat hanging open, his forehead resting on mine. "This is dangerous," I said, but my voice was weak, defeated. He smiled, that slow, devastating smile. The best things always are. The seventh encounter was the one that should have been the last. Mark had noticed something was wrong. He wasn't oblivious, just busy. He suggested a weekend away, just the two of us, to reconnect. I agreed, hoping the distance would clear my head, would make me forget Daniel. But the morning we were supposed to leave, I found a note in my suitcase. "I know you're leaving. I won't let you go without saying goodbye." I should have ignored it. I should have closed the suitcase and driven away with Mark. But instead, I told him I'd forgotten something at the library and rushed back, my heart pounding. Daniel was there, in the rare books room, the same place we'd had our second encounter. He didn't speak when he saw me, he just crossed the room in 2 strides and kissed me, a kiss that was all hunger and despair, like he was trying to memorize every part of me in case it was the last time. His hands were rough this time, urgent, as he lifted me onto the old wooden desk, pushing aside stacks of books. I wrapped my legs around his waist, pulling him closer, desperate for the contact, the distraction from the guilt and the fear. His mouth trailed down my neck, his fingers fumbling with the buttons of my blouse, and I thought, this is it. This is the point of no return. And then we heard the front door slam. Footsteps, familiar ones, Mark's. He'd come looking for me when I took too long. Panic flooded me as Daniel froze, his eyes wide. I shoved him away, scrambling to button my blouse, my hands shaking. Lila? Mark called, his voice getting closer. Daniel grabbed his jacket, slipping into the shadows of the stacks, as Mark entered the room. There you are, he said, smiling, but his smile faded when he saw my face, pale, tear-streaked, my hair a mess. What's wrong? He asked, stepping closer. I lied. I said I'd been upset about a book that was lost, that I was stressed. He believed me, of course. He always does. As he led me out of the library, I glanced back, and there was Daniel, half hidden behind a bookshelf, watching us go, a look on his face that made my heart ache. The 8th encounter was the night I broke. It was a Thursday, late, and I was closing up alone. I'd just turned off the main lights when I heard a noise in the stacks. My first thought was a burglar, but then I saw him, standing there in the dim light, the glow from the street lamp casting shadows on his face. You've been avoiding me, he said, walking closer. I took a step back, but my legs hit a bookshelf. Why? His voice was soft, almost hurt, but his eyes, they were burning, like he could see right through me, right to the part of me that had been craving this, craving him, even as I told myself it was wrong. I'm married, I said again, but it was weaker this time, more like a plea than a protest. He stepped closer, until there was barely an inch between us. I could feel his breath on my neck, warm, steady. Do you love him? He asked. I opened my mouth to say yes, but no sound came out. Did I love Mark? We'd been together for 5 years, steady, safe. But did I burn for him? Like I burned for the man in front of me, who made my skin tingle with just a look. His hand came up to my jaw, tilting my face up so he could look into my eyes. I can see it in your eyes, he said. You want this as much as I do. And then he kissed me again, harder this time, his other hand sliding down to my hip, pulling me against him. I gasped into the kiss, my hands betraying me as they tangled in his hair, pulling him closer. I could feel the cold edge of the bookshelf against my back, the weight of his body pressing into mine, and all the guilt, all the fear, just melted away. His hands were everywhere, skimming up my sides, teasing the hem of my blouse, and when he brushed against the lace of my bra, I moaned, a sound I didn't even know I was capable of making. Daniel, I breathed, but it wasn't a protest. It was a surrender. He pulled back just enough to look at me, his eyes dark, his voice rough. Tell me to stop, he said. Tell me you don't want this, and I'll leave. Now. But I couldn't speak. I couldn't even think. All I could feel was the ache inside me, the need for something I'd been denying for so long. So instead, I reached up and unbuttoned the top of my blouse, letting it fall open to reveal the black lace bra underneath. His breath hitched, and that was all the answer he needed. What happened next? I can't describe it in plain words, because it's too raw, too personal. But I can tell you this, it was like a storm had been building inside me for years, and he was the lightning that finally let it break. His hands were rough but gentle, undoing buttons, sliding fabric aside, exploring every part of me like I was a treasure he'd been searching for. And I let him. I wanted him to. I arched into his touch, gasped his name, lost myself in the heat and the friction and the sheer, undeniable rightness of it, even as the back of my mind whispered that this was wrong, so wrong, that Mark would never forgive me, that I'd never forgive myself. But then, oh, God, then, we heard the front door rattle. Someone was trying to get in. My heart stopped. It was after hours, the only person who had a key was Mark, I whispered, panic flooding through me. Daniel froze, his eyes wide. We scrambled to button my blouse, straighten our clothes, my hands shaking so badly I could barely fasten the last button. The door opened, and there was Mark, holding an umbrella, looking confused. Lila? I forgot my reading glasses, he said. I forced a smile, praying he couldn't see the flush on my cheeks, the way my hair was tousled, the fact that my bra was hooked wrong. Oh, right, I said, my voice trembling. They're in the office. Daniel cleared his throat, stepping forward. I was just leaving, he said, nodding at Mark. Needed a book for a late-night read. Mark barely glanced at him, already heading to my office. As Daniel passed me, he brushed against my arm, just slightly, but the touch sent a shockwave through me, even as fear clawed at my chest. Daniel left, and Mark found his glasses, and we went home like nothing had happened. But something had happened. Something I can't undo, can't forget. That night, lying in bed next to Mark, I stared at the ceiling, feeling Daniel's touch like a brand on my skin. I should feel guilty, I do feel guilty. But part of me, the part I'm too ashamed to admit exists, wants to do it again. Wants to feel that fire, that passion, that sense of being truly, utterly desired. I don't know what I'm looking for by sharing this. Absolution? Condemnation? Maybe just the relief of getting it off my chest. All I know is that every time I walk into the library now, I half expect to see Daniel there, half hope and half fear it. And when I find a new note in my favorite book, I can still taste your lips. Meet me tonight, I feel that ache again, that pull, stronger than ever. Am I a terrible person? Maybe. But God, does it feel good to be terrible?